Onen, we see over here something very interesting. Yesterday we learned that Onen is a person that one of his 7 relatives, immediate relatives, passed away, and they were not buried yet. Until the burial, his status is Onen. When is his status changes? When is he becoming right now? From Onen becomes Avel. Says the halakha, not whenever you put the body in the ground, whenever you are closing the body with a certain cover. In Eretz Israel, they bury in the ground. They have a cement from the sides, and the bottom there is a ground in Eretz Israel. So whenever they put the body in, after they leave, they put a little bit sand on top of him. You have to go back to dirt. But then they leave a little bit space between the body until they put a board. This board, it's made out of wood, and that board is a golal. Golal means something that you're closing the grave with. You have to leave space between the dead person and the cover. You cannot put the body very close to that cover. Because the halakha says, because the tum'ah, the impurity, needs space to rest there. If you're going to close the whole body with sand and on top of it put the board without leaving a space of at least a tefach, kulak, at least this distance has to stay. If you did not do so, the tum'ah of that person is going to go all the way to the shamayim. And then it will be a problem, according to many opinions, for Kohanim to fly over that area. Because they're going to go into airplane, and underneath there is Jewish people buried. So to avoid that problem, what do? We make the person go very deep inside the ground, and then we leave a space of at least tefach, between the person and the board. That's why it's a golal. When is the status? Then between that golal till the ground level, there is another like a 1.5 feet maybe. Then they covered with sand. So there is body, a little bit sand, space, cover. On top of the cover, they put a lot of sand, and then they make it ground level. That's the burial process. Now, when is the status changes from a person from being onen to become avel? Says the halakha, whenever that board is placed on top of the person. That board is already enough to be called as a burial. So since the burial finished, even though you have to still put sand and sand and sand to make it even to the ground, but since the burial finished, the status of the person changed from onen to become avel. Why is it important to know? For few halachot. One halakha is how many days a person sits avel. How many days he sits? 7 days. How much of the day he has to sit as avel to count as a day? 1 minute. So what if they put the board before the sunset? So before the sunset, как поставили этот board, через минуту солнце село. 1 minute. That day that he was buried, count as the first day, or tomorrow is the first day?
No, first day.
Because there was at least 1 more minute until the sunset, and the board was already placed. Avelut started. Since Avelut started, it's already 1 day. He's gonna have to sit Avelut instead of another 7 days. He's gonna have to sit Avelut another 6 days. The first day is already finished. That's one halakha. Why is it very important to know? Second halakha says over here, Ravadia, what if a person right now wants to say Kaddish? Yesterday we learned Onen counts for minyan. What we learned yesterday? Onen, Moshe minyan shital. Onen. Yeah. We said not allowed to, right? Says Ravadia, but what if he after? He should not say the Kaddish before the burial. When should he say the Kaddish? If he doesn't have minyan? When should he say the Kaddish? After the cover. Now the status of the relatives are not anymore Onen. Their status changed from Onen to Avel. So since their status already was Avel, they're allowed to say the Kaddish 100%. There's few opinions that hold. What if a person himself doesn't bury? He gives it to the company, Chevrat Kadisha. They bury. In such a case, some hold that even before the burial, you can say Kaddish. You cannot say anything else, and you also can count for the minyan of the Kaddish. You cannot count for anything else. Says Rav Ovadia Yosef, what's the reason? Because Kaddish doesn't have bracha levatala. It's machloket if you give to the company to bury, you don't do yourself anything. So are you still called onen or no? It's an argument. Says Rav Ovadia, says an argument, safek derabanan lekula. Therefore, he says, if there is 10 people with the onen, 9 people and the onen, 10 people, and he gave it to the Chevrat Kadisha to people to bury, he can say the Kaddish also. He can say the Kaddish even before the burial. That's the Chidush over here. But if he is going to say the Kaddish after the burial, Golal Pasavili the board, this is allowed to say the Kaddish according to all the opinions. What's the reason? because he already not Onen anymore. His status from now changed from Onen to become Avel. Whenever he's Avel is obligated in all the mitzvot. So this Rabotai situation is unfortunate, but this is part of life. Death is part of cycle of life. We have to know those laws in order to know how to behave properly.